Okay, over to you, Jeff.
Let's begin with the prayer of refuge, bodhicitta, and the four immeasurables led by Sravasti Abbey.
I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, and will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I am awakened in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. By the merit I create by listening to the Dharma, I will attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and its causes. May all sentient beings be free of suffering and its causes. May all sentient beings not be separated from sorrowless bliss. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free of bias, attachment, and anger.
Wonderful. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 8th installment of the Jeffrey Hopkins Legacy Series with Precious Abbess of Sravasti Abbey, Venerable Thubten Chodron. My name is Jeff Allen. I'm honored to be here on behalf of Buddha Center again, collaborating with Sravasti Abbey and Institute for Tibetan Studies. Any donations received during this series will go to Institute for Tibetan Studies. There's a link in the chat box as usual. This will bring you to the Sravasti Abbey donation page right in the comments section when you make your donation. Jeffrey Hopkins series. This will help continue the internet availability of so many publications on the website, as well as providing funding for future translations. Professor Hopkins left because of impermanence, as I've said, quite a few unfinished projects, and Venerable Chodron can confirm that he worked right up to the end of his life. As an aside, as I mentioned last week, there's an updated version of the classic text meditation on emptiness over here, I think. You can see on the top shelf with Chandrakirti on the cover now. This will be coming out, I think, in March of 2025. And everyone on this international team that's working on the text is working like crazy to get the final changes done and get everything just perfect for its release that's going to be coming out. So that's very cool. After the lecture, we'll entertain questions for about 30 minutes. There's a live audience, as we know, and an online audience. So we'll be going back and forth and doing questions at the end, live, and the live audience, and then the online audience. So it'll be really fun. So just start putting the questions in the chat box in the specific spot you're supposed to on that link, and then I'll get them and we'll work those questions in as we can and get to as many as we are able to. Slides, if there are any. We didn't talk about that, but if there are any, nope, no slides available for this teaching because there are none. So that makes that very simple. So I'm honored to introduce you to the Precious Abbess of Sravasti Abbey, Venerable Thubten Chodron. Okay, here we go. This was not an easy one to write, I have to say. You've done a few things in your career. And I'm just so honored to be able to be here to introduce you. Venerable Chodron earned a bachelor's degree in history at University of California at Los Angeles in 1971. Yeah, we're going back. We're gonna tell the story. After graduating, she did some traveling. I'm not going to do, around to where. She did some traveling and then took her first position at the LA school system while doing graduate work. So she started teaching right away, which she's done ever since, and not always in the most simple situations. In 75, she attended a meditation course given by the precious Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche, and subsequently went to Kopan in Nepal to continue studying Buddhism. I guess you didn't do anything halfway then either. You just went for it. I've often referred to Venerable Chodron as the daredevil trailblazer, since the acceptance of women as viable potential scholars was not a view held by many of the elders in the tradition due to backwards cultural thinking. Fortunately, great lamas who had really heard the teachings on the Buddha matrix embraced you as their student and quickly realized your amazing qualities. Venerable Chodron directed the spiritual program at Lama Tsongkhapa Institute in Italy for nearly 2 years, studied 3 years at Dorje Palmo Monastery in France, and was resident teacher at Amitabha Buddhist Center in Singapore. For 10 years, she was resident teacher at Dharma Friendship Foundation in Seattle, and it was there in 98 that the teachings from Gen Hopkins began, as he would say, when he visited there to lecture. Professor Hopkins is not only tough, but loved to joke around and tease those he really cherished and respected. The relationship that the two of you had over the years was very touching and can be heard on the videos of those precious classes on the Uma Institute YouTube page. Another treasure trove of free Dharma teachings by, again, Jeffrey Hopkins. Also be sure to look around the Abbey site and Venerable Chodron's personal page to see pictures of her incredible teachers who were all top scholars. Venerable Chodron and I have known each other for over 25 years because of our mutual karmic connection to my root teacher, Venerable Khenser Geshe Wandak, Namgyo Khenser Geshe Wandak Rinpoche, who actually blessed the Abbey land. He really loved you so much, Venerable. He really did. And was always so impressed by your enlightened-like activities, just always so impressed and smiled whenever your name came up. And I was around him a lot, so I can confirm that. Getting back to your story. In 2003, Venerable Chodron and two cats moved to and founded the Sravasti Abbey. I'm counting them as founders. So 3 people founded the Abbey, 2 were cats. Her huge vision, courage, and nonstop effort has led to the arising of the first place in the US for Western nuns and monks to engage in learning, reflection, and meditation without having to lead an unrealistic dual non-renunciate lifestyle working to survive. The non-communal roaming monastic model has not proven to be successful in many cases. Unfortunately, sincere practitioners have suffered because of lacking resources to live the contemplative lifestyle. Thank you for providing an alternative. And I know this was the vision. And I know you saw this discrepancy. And thank you so much. We cannot underestimate the power of having the monastic tradition here. And I just rejoice in everything that you're doing there. The mark of the Dharma being in a place is if the ordained Sangha is present. Thank you for bringing up the spiritual value of the real estate in the US. If you have not heard yet, there's an amazing project underway called the Buddha Hall. It's a 17,000 square foot, 2-story hall on the Abbey property. And check out the Abbey website for updates on progress, current needs, etc. Everyone at the Abbey has been working day and night to complete this building project and place all the holy objects and representations of the diverse Buddhist world in just the right place inside. This learning, reflection, and meditation hall will benefit many generations of serious practitioners to come. So after one line that I left out in here because I was telling another story is that in 1977, let's just go back, you were ordained by Kepche Ling Rinpoche in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, who was the senior tutor of His Holiness the Dalai Lama, for anyone who doesn't know. And then at 86, you received your full Bhikshuni ordination in Taiwan with a beautiful meeting of the Mula Sarvastivadi tradition and the Dharmagupta Vinaya tradition. And I just rejoice in the fact in this taking of the vows in Taiwan. So if you've not heard, okay, in her spare time, and you can maybe clarify, I clarify about the Vinaya and so forth. In her spare time, Venerable Chodron has been the author of around 30 books and the editor of over 20, beginning with Open Heart, Clear Mind in 1990 to the most recent, now 10-book series with His Holiness the Dalai Lama called The Library of Wisdom and Compassion, published by Wisdom Publications. This series sets a standard for accurate scholarship and compiles decades of explanation His Holiness gave on every step needed on the Buddhist path to enlightenment. The 10th volume, Vajrayana, and the culmination of the path will be released early this Wednesday, November 6th, during the Wisdom Dharma chat hosted by Daniel Aiken. Be sure to check this out on Wednesday. You exemplify how to make use of this fleeting, precious human life, Venerable. Like a river that effortlessly flows day after day, your Dharma activities just keep going. You and Gen Hopkins truly share the amazing trait that is the first word in his Tibetan name, Nenden, meaning persistence. With that being said, I'm beyond honored to introduce you to our 8th speaker of the Jeffrey Hopkins Legacy Series, the precious Abbess, Venerable Thubten Chodron, to explain why the Vinaya is important if things are empty.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff. I know that nobody here wrote that introduction. Okay, so I'm kind of an outlier to this whole series. I didn't study with Jeffrey at UVA. I'm not a PhD like all the other speakers. I'm the only nun in the series, and aside from Anne, who spoke earlier, I'm only the second woman in the series. So I don't really belong here, but Jeff needed somebody for this slot. So, you know, he kidnapped me, and yeah. Okay.
You know, one of the vows is to tell the truth.
Well, that introduction you gave. So, yeah. I, you know, took a different route into the Dharma than the other speakers, in the sense that they all became academics. And by the time I graduated college, I was done with school. Yeah. I didn't like the whole academic scene. Yeah. To write papers telling professors what they already know. Although I don't think if I had studied with Jeffrey, that would have been the case. But yeah, so I wanted to travel, and I also, after I met the Dharma, I wanted to really study with the people who lived the Dharma. And to me, it was important to, you know, my teachers were monastics, and the monastic community was all around me. And that was important to me personally, you know, in terms of seeing a role model of what I wanted to be. I had been to university, I knew the role model there, and that wasn't attractive to me at all. I wanted to really learn from the people who lived it and practiced it. And so I was quite fortunate in having like an incredible number of really good teachers, including Khenzer Wangdak. Yeah, because I came along right before, there was a period in the early 80s where many great masters died, and I came along in the late 70s. I met the Dharma in 75. So I had the opportunity to meet many of these masters, although I must say that my mind was even more obscured then than it is now. So I didn't always appreciate everything that they said until after they had died. But, you know, what they taught still is somewhere in there, and I try to bring it out as much as I can. Okay. So, I should also say about the connection with Jeffrey. I first saw him translate back in the late 70s or early 80s, and I was just like, wow, my goodness, how can somebody do that? And after I found a copy of Meditation on Emptiness, I read it from cover to cover and understood that the colors are black, no, not black, blue, yellow, red, and that white horses are not white. Actually, I learned that part from, who was it? Dan Perdue's book, his big, thick debate book. But I think the connection with Jeffrey really took off when I was the resident teacher at the DFF in Seattle, and a number of the people in the group were gay. And Jeffrey had just come out at that time. And so we invited him to DFF to give a talk and to just talk about whatever he wanted to. And so he came, and I can't remember what he talked about, but he was very happy, and he talked a bit about being gay, in it. So that, I think that made him very happy, to be able to go to a group where he was just completely accepted, yeah. And some of you were there at that time when he came. Yeah, and then he came to, after the Abbey started, he came here a couple of times and taught. And then I can't remember exactly how he started teaching the weekly classes that went on for years and years. But somehow, I don't know, I think we had invited him to come again, and he couldn't, he was getting older. Even though he flew from Canada to the East Coast, he couldn't get down to the Abbey, but, so he volunteered to do something online. And so he started teaching us, started more or less, I think he started with Madhyamaka and quickly realized that people needed to go back to the beginning and start with the tenets. So he brought in the tenets. And he also shared with us some of the PhD dissertations of some of you who I don't know, I don't see any of you listening, the academics, but oh well. And so I do want to encourage you, those who wrote PhDs who did not publish them, please consider going over them again and publishing them. Jeffrey shared with us one about the Theravada tradition that was very good, and another one about the mind basis of all in the Yogacarya tradition, which was very good. And if you need people to help edit those, we are very willing to do that, because I think many of these things, it would be very, very good if they were published, yeah, not hidden in some university stacks somewhere. Okay, so now I better speak to the assignment Jeff gave me. So why is the Vinaya important if things are empty? Well, they're just empty, so then there's no good, there's no bad, nothing's important, right? Yeah, this is one of the fears I have about Buddhism in America, is people really will think that, well, why is Vinaya, why are your monastics, why ethical conduct, why is any of this important? Everything's empty. Yeah, so you just create your own system of ethics, which means that everything you like to do is okay, and everything you disapprove of and would never do is negative. It's a very good system of ethics, isn't it? Yeah. So, yeah, I'm actually quite glad I was asked to speak on this topic. So when we talk about Vinaya, we're referring to the monastic conduct, and specifically within that, you have the pratimoksha, which the bhikshu and bhikshuni pratimokshas, the list of precepts that people take when they take the full ordination. And by the way, just to correct something, my full ordination was in the Dharmaguptaka. It wasn't a merging of Mula Sravastivada and Dharmaguptaka. It was strictly in the Dharmaguptaka tradition. So, you know, the Vinaya, Pratimoksha, all of this is concerned with ethical conduct, yeah, which some people call morality, but I think the word morality has too much of a Sunday school flavor. Yeah, so I prefer the term ethical conduct. And, you know, we shouldn't poo-poo it because it's the first thing when the Buddha, you know, talked about the path. What's the basic first thing you have to do? Yeah, when you take refuge, you know, you turn to the Buddha, Dharma, Sangha for spiritual guidance. And at that same ceremony, if you want, you can take the 5 lay precepts or part of the lay precepts. That's the Buddha's first advice, the first thing. I call that stop being a jerk, okay? Because I don't know about you people, but I came to Buddhism very much being a jerk. And you know, my behavior was just what I said before. Whatever I liked was virtuous, and whatever I would never do was non-virtuous. And, you know, when politicians lied, when business people cheated people, that was horrible. When I lied, well, I was just protecting other people's feelings. My lying was done out of compassion, you see. You know, so one of the reasons I ordained was I saw that I had a real double, what do you call it? Double standard. What? Double standard. Double standard, thank you. You know, because I was judging other people for doing things that I considered terrible when I did many of those same things. Yeah. And I thought after I met the Dharma, I have to, you know, clear this up and start acting in a way that's consistent and not criticizing people for the same things that I do. Okay, so that was one of my reasons for ordaining. So, yeah. So the pratimoksha is part of this. When we talk about pratimoksha, Tsongkhapa listed 8 sets of precepts in the pratimoksha. So 3 were for lay people, male and female lay followers, plus ones who took the 8 precepts for one day, and then 5 for monastics, so male and female novices or shramaneras, the nuns training ordination, shikshamana, and then the full ordination, bhikshu and bhikshuni. Okay, so it consists of those 8, but actually being a monastic is much, much more than those precepts. Yeah. The Vinaya talks about many more things. There's things that as a monastic you should do, and many other, there's a lot to learn, okay? And especially in this day and age, figuring out how to live within our monastic precepts in a Western culture where that is completely different from the ancient Indian culture where the Buddha first established the precepts. Okay. So, you know, why is the Vinaya important if things are empty? Yeah. So this goes it raises a number of different questions. For example, what's the relationship between ethical conduct and compassion? And how do ethical conduct and compassion lead to generating the wisdom realizing emptiness? Okay, another question is, ethical conduct is on the method side of the path. Why are both method and wisdom necessary to become Buddha? Yeah, if everything's empty, why do you need the whole method side of the path? Yeah, there were certain practitioners along the way. I think during the big debate at Samye, that was one of, the Mahayana abbot from China, his position, and I've heard of some in ancient times, Zen practitioners saying, the whole method side of the path isn't, it's just all words, it's all concepts, everything's empty, you don't need it. So, this raises that question, why do you need it? And then also, when we hear His Holiness Dalai Lama speak, what are the two things he's always emphasizing to us? Yeah, compassion and wisdom. Okay, and so, how do we practice compassion and wisdom together? That's another question. So I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about each of these questions. Okay, so first, the relationship between ethical conduct and compassion and how that leads to wisdom. Okay, so ethical conduct is the nature of compassion. Or we could say compassion is the nature of ethical conduct. Because by definition, ethical conduct is the wish to abandon harming others. Yeah, it's the stopping to harm others. Compassion wants others to be free of suffering and its causes. Those two things go together, don't they? Yeah, how, if we sincerely want others to be free of misery and its causes, what's the first thing we have to do? Stop harming them. Stop being a jerk. Yeah, and so, ethical compassion and ethical conduct and compassion come very close when you really dig into both of them. Okay, and in this regard, Jeffrey said that his, when he was meditating a lot on love and compassion, the bodhicitta motivations, he said, this was early on in his career, that those meditations on compassion and love and bodhicitta really opened his mind. And with that open mind, enabled him to delve more into the teachings on wisdom, to delve more into the teachings on emptiness. So in Jeffrey's personal experience, the meditations on compassion on the method side of the path are what clarified or cleared certain obstacles from his mind so that he could then focus on the wisdom side and learning about emptiness. So, both of these had a very strong effect on him. And it was interesting because Jeffrey's early career, he wrote a lot about emptiness. And then later on, he wrote his book about compassion. Yeah. And I always found that quite interesting, how he did it like that. Okay. So why are method and wisdom, method being ethical conduct, compassion, all those kinds of things, generosity, most of the paramitas, except the ones of concentration and wisdom, have to do with the method side of the path. So, why do we need both of these? Well, first of all, if you think of what a Buddha is, yeah, can you imagine somebody who has full wisdom of the nature of reality, someone who cherishes other living beings more than themselves, yeah, someone who manifests in infinite ways according to the karma and the receptivity of sentient beings. So somebody with that kind of mind and abilities, could you imagine somebody like that killing, stealing, sleeping around, lying? You can't imagine a Buddha who doesn't keep ethical conduct, can you? Yeah, that just doesn't fulfill our image of somebody who's capable of the things that a Buddha can do, somebody worthy of that respect. So we never heard of a Buddha who really relished harming living beings, somebody who was totally impulsive and had no regard for the effect of his actions on others. Yeah, we can't imagine a Buddha with those kind of qualities. It just doesn't work. Okay, ethical conduct, why, this is under the question of why are both method and wisdom needed, okay? So we have to collect merit, and we have the collection of merit and the collection of wisdom, And so the collection of merit is done very much through the method side of the path, yeah. And so ethical conduct has a major step of that. And here, ethical conduct isn't just the Vinaya Pratimoksha, which is the fundamental vehicle of ethical conduct. It also includes the Bodhisattva precepts and the Tantric ethical code and those commitments that we take. So it's, wherever you turn in Buddhist practice, whether you're doing fundamental vehicle practice, Mahayana practice, Vajrayana practice, there's ethical codes, yeah? And you take precepts. Why? Because we need to subdue not just our body and speech, but especially our crazy mind that motivates the crazy actions of body and speech. And if you don't believe in crazy actions of body, speech, and mind, just listen to the news, tonight and tomorrow night before the election, if you haven't before, and you can see why, what's going on. So when we keep ethical conduct, that helps to purify previously created negative karma, okay? How does it do this? One way is because one of the results of our previously created negative karma is to do the action again. When you do a negative action, is starting or feeding the habit to do it again. And when we take precepts, we're impeding that, because the force of our aspiration, the force of the precept body in the case of Pratimoksha precepts, then it stops that karmic ripening of doing the action again and again. And they say that is actually of the different karmic ways that karma can ripen, that is the worst one. Yeah, we might say, well, being born in a lower realm is the worst karmic ripening. Actually, it's not, because you're born in the lower realm. It lasts as long as that particular karma created the cause for it to last, then it's over. But the result of doing the action that is the habitual tendency to do it again, then what you do is you keep creating negative karma again and again and again. And that's why that, of all the ripenings of karma, why they say that one is really the worst and the most dangerous. Okay? So ethical conduct puts a brake on that if we keep the precepts. Also, when you have precepts, every moment that you're not breaking them, you are creating merit. Okay? So if you're sitting here in this room, the monastics here have heard me say this many times, but they're sleeping right now. So, you know, that maybe it'll wake them up. I'm not sure. But, you know, if there's people sitting in this room who have the precepts not to kill, not to steal, let's say, and there's people sitting in the room who don't have those precepts, well, at this particular time, nobody's killing and stealing in this room. But the people who have the precepts, just by fulfilling that aspiration and that pledge that they made, the precept they took not to kill and steal, every moment they're not doing that, they're accumulating the merit of the virtue of that virtuous action of abandoning those things. Somebody who doesn't have that precept, they're also sitting here and not killing. Those people are more awake than the monastics. Yeah, they didn't even laugh. That shows how deep sleep they're in. So, oh, that woke you up, huh? Yeah, so everybody, so even if you're not killing and sleeping when, during teachings, if you have a precept and you're keeping that precept, you're not only purifying, doing the action again, but you're also creating the merit of abandoning killing, abandoning stealing. Yeah, okay. So ethical conduct's quite effective, you know, for collecting merit, which is a big thing we have to do on the path. So ethical conduct definitely also is the primary cause to have a fortunate rebirth. And we need a whole series of fortunate rebirths in the future because it's going to take a while to fulfill the collection of merit and collection of wisdom, you know, and so we need a whole series of good rebirths in the future. You know, some people, it's quite interesting in America, some people say, oh, well, in Asia, the Asians, you know, they just make, they make offerings, they're very generous, but their wish is to have a good rebirth. Yeah, but that's such a worldly aspiration. We are Vajrayana practitioners. Yeah, we're already practicing, you know, the secret mantra vehicle. So we have a better motivation. Yeah, we're working towards Buddhahood. We're not like those people who just create merit for their next life. Okay, this is part of my concern over Buddhism in the West, because you do find people thinking like that, yeah? So, but that is not exactly what the Buddha taught, you know? And so it's really good to set a strong foundation in ethical conduct, which will feed our ability to have compassion and, you know, help us accomplish the collection of merit. And this merit and the practice of the method side is, how to say, it affects you psychologically. You know, just when you start out the path and your actions are like all over and justifying all your negative actions. Do you know what I mean? Or was I the only person who did that? No, you did too. Okay. So, you know, at that time, early in our practice, you know, we feel, at least I felt, you know, I was walking, trying to practice the Dharma, but it was on very unsteady ground, you know, and the mind wasn't so steady, and yeah, everything just felt unsteady at the beginning. Yeah. But I think when you practice ethical conduct and keep your precepts as best as you can, we're not perfect, then after a while, after a number of years of doing this, then you feel that you're standing on solid ground, you know, and that you have some basis. At least you don't feel like you're free floating in trying to work with your mind, or it's hard to describe, but I think people who have practiced for many, many years, you know, kind of have that feeling. Okay, so it helps us in ethical conduct, helps us in our daily life, and helps us to gain a good rebirth. Yeah, and it's also, you know, this creation of merit from ethical conduct is important for it creates the cause for the Rupakaya, the form bodies of the Buddha. Because when you become a Buddha, you have to have the Dharmakaya, the mind of the Buddha, and the Rupakaya, the form bodies. So both collections of merit and wisdom are necessary to achieve those two results. In other words, you can't just practice wisdom and think, oh yes, wisdom creates the cause for the Dharmakaya. Now I have the mind of a Buddha, but you don't have the body of a Buddha. Yeah, then you're missing. You haven't really attained Buddhahood. Okay, so you know, both method and wisdom are important for the attainment of Buddhahood, and the method really, how to say, it gives substance to your mind, you know, so that when you hear the wisdom teachings, you can take them in better. Yeah, so it's important. Yeah, when you're a baby beginner, if you just start out learning emptiness, you don't really understand much, and so it's the method side of the path, I think, that really opens us to understanding the Buddha's teachings, so that we can progress to the point where we will begin to understand something about emptiness. Okay, so then the next question is, why is His Holiness Dalai Lama, you know, when he would always give these short online sessions over the last few years, he kept emphasizing compassion and wisdom. And you may remember that he taught very often this, yes, all-encompassing yoga. Okay, and this is something actually that comes from the tantric empowerments, but His Holiness extracted it and made it for everybody. Yeah, and so he taught it as involving imagining a white moon disk, flat white moon disk at your heart. That's the nature of compassion. And so he always led us in some version of the meditations to generate compassion and bodhicitta, then had us visualize that white moon disk, you know, in our heart center. And then he led us in a little meditation, a short meditation about emptiness. and then you visualize an upright Vajra in the center of your moon disk, and meditate on that. Yeah, and then there's a mantra that you say. But he led us in that so often, yeah, if you remember, and he said it would be very good if we could do that every day. Yeah, I started out doing it every day, and then got distracted, then came back to it. But maybe this will be a reminder to all of us to start doing it again. Okay, His Holiness also talked about, and I think this is very, very important, especially in America, Buddhism in America. His Holiness kept saying that our mind is multifaceted, that our mind is a very complex entity. And so just doing one type of meditation will not fulfill the entire path. Yeah, this is important because, yeah, what we find very often is teachers emphasizing one meditation, and that's all you do. Yeah, and His Holiness said, and I think this is especially for Mahayana practitioners, to develop all the kinds of qualities we need to develop in order to become a Buddha, we need many types of meditation, okay? So not only meditations to develop concentration, shamatha, not only meditations to develop insight, vipassana, yeah, not only meditations to develop compassion, meditations to develop love, meditations to understand karma, meditations on the disadvantages of cyclic existence in order to generate renunciation. His Holiness said, you need all of these. Yeah? And that's why Jason Kappa, based on Atisha, wrote the stages of the path in, he wrote short ones, middle length ones, long ones. Why? Because we have to contemplate all these topics, not just contemplate them once and say, oh yes, I know, now I have a precious human life, what's next? No, but to really get some feeling for all these things and not just bounce over stuff and think, because we've heard the teaching, oh yeah, I got it, I don't need that, So, to develop the mindfulness, that's the new buzzword in Western Buddhism now, isn't it? It's mindfulness. Everybody wants to be mindful. Yeah. If you ask people now, as soon as you see a term in Time magazine or Newsweek, you know that something's that it's going to come out with a different meaning than what the Buddha said. Okay, so, but in the mindfulness required in Buddhism, begins with mindfulness of our body, speech, and mind, and that falls within the realm of keeping precepts. Pratimoksha precepts, govern actions of body and speech. Bodhisattva and Tantra precepts also include, things that regulate the mind. So all of these are really important. Okay, yeah, and certainly, Tantra it's the culmination of the path. Tantra is wonderful, yeah, but we have to create the causes to be able to practice it properly. And we have to understand the whole philosophy behind Tantra. If you haven't, I recently attended some teachings, and what I got out of it especially is how important it is to study and not just do tantric visualizations, because you can visualize going this way, going that way. Some of you are doing that as you're sleeping. Please go to bed. If you want to go to bed, leave, okay? So if you, where was I? Yeah. So what about Tantra? Yeah. So, you can recite all the mantra you want. You can visualize this going here and that going there and reabsorbing to you. And it's nice. It makes you feel good very often. Oh, all this light is coming in. Blissful light from Vajrasattva. I feel so good. What's the motivation? Yeah. Are we doing the practice with a Dharma motivation, or are we doing it because it's a feel-good meditation? Yeah, it may look like Tantra, but maybe it's not, because the meditation, the motivation, has become ordinary. Or you just, sit down, instantly you arise as the deity, but where's the meditation on emptiness? Well, you don't do it because you haven't studied in any way. You hear emptiness, you just say, yeah, nothing exists, and I appear as no, that's not how you arise as the deity, okay? So it's so important, really, to get a benefit out of Tantra, to practice ethical conduct, practice concentration, study the teachings, so that we have the wisdom from learning, the wisdom from contemplating, the wisdom from meditating. All very important, not just jumping to the highest thing. Okay, so then the question of how do we practice method and wisdom together? Okay, so one way, was embodied by that meditation on the all-encompassing yoga, okay, that I just described with the moon and the Vajra. Okay, another way is ethical conduct, is related to discussion of karma and its effects, because that's when we keep ethical conduct, that's what we're trying to do, is, keep the law of karma, or respect the law of karma and its effects, and to purify our actions, change our actions, make them compatible with what doesn't harm others and doesn't harm ourselves. Because when we act with negative karma, we not only harm other beings, or the object of, who get harmed when we act with anger, ignorance, and attachment, but we also harm ourselves by putting these imprints of negative karma on our mind. So ethical conduct is related to the law of karma and its effects, and that is related to the broader law of cause and effect, okay? And when we talk about Jeffrey used the expression, the monarch of reasonings. He was gender equal, the monarch of reasonings. In other words, one of the reasons that prove the emptiness of inherent existence is cause and effect, dependent arising. Well, the monarch of the reasonings is dependent arising, and one form that we first meditate on regarding dependent arising is cause and effect, and within that, especially the cause and effect system of the actions that we create being the cause and the effects that those produce. Okay, so all of this is quite related to generating the wisdom that realizes that things lack inherent existence. How is it related? Well, not only by keeping ethical conduct are you building support for generating wisdom by purifying your negativities and creating merit, but when you can, the more you can train the mind, starting with seeing your actions as my actions are the cause for what I'm going to experience later. And what I'm experiencing now is the result of actions I did in the past. The more we train our mind to see our life like that, the more in our daily life we become aware of cause and effect. It's the air we breathe, and yet we so often ignore it. Yeah, and this meditation on cause and effect and dependency, dependent arising, is important not only to realize emptiness, because if something arises dependent on other phenomena, it cannot be independent. And what is it that we're negating is independent or inherent existence. So the more we understand dependency, the more that overcomes our incredible grasping at things having their own independent essence that is them. Okay, so it works that way. That's the first level of cause and effect. Then, and we start out with that, and that's quite powerful for realizing emptiness. And then we go from there to thinking about, if there's different ways of delineating dependent arising. So one way is dependency of cause and effect, and then the dependency on parts, so that everything has parts, whether it's a material object, a consciousness, one that is neither, even permanent phenomena have parts that they depend on. And then the subtlest level in that threefold view is the dependence on term and concept, that things exist by being merely designated, independence on a basis of designation. His Holiness sometimes speaks about two kinds of dependent arising. The first one being causal dependence, and the second one, he calls it dependent designation. And within that, he has two branches. The first one is mutual dependence, so like the dependence of hot and cold, tall and short, yeah. And then second, the dependence on term and concept. The whole thing, this whole meditation on dependence, yeah, not only is in the methods, in the wisdom side of the path, it's also in the method side of the path. One of the meditations I personally have found so healing and for my mind is the meditation on the kindness of other sentient beings, and seeing how dependent I am on them. We all like being independent, don't we? I'm an independent person. Don't tell me what to do. I can make up my own mind. If you boss me around, if you make me get home at a certain hour, I'm out of here. I can take care of myself. I don't have any boots, but I can still pull myself up by those visualized bootstraps, Yeah. So we like to think of ourselves as independent entities, don't we? Yeah. Now, especially there's an election. I'm an independent entity. I have used my own wisdom to analyze these candidates. I know which one is the correct one, yeah, that everybody should vote for. But I won't tell you who that is. Yeah. But, you know, this idea that I'm independent and I can, I almost am omniscient, just have a little work to do, but getting it going in that direction. I mean, when I was 16, I was really almost omniscient. Then something happened between 16 and now I am now, Yeah, but at 16, I was almost omniscient. My parents knew absolutely nothing. Anyway, back to talking about the kindness of sentient beings, you begin to really think, my whole, who I am is not an independent entity. Yeah, it depends on the body, it depends on the mind. Yeah, my body, what's the body? There's a bunch of genes, some are from mom, some are for dad, and then all the food I ate since I was born. Yeah, that's what this body is. Yeah, my mind, well, I came into this life with, certain karmic propensities, different karmic seeds on the mind. But it wasn't just that. It was also, besides the nature part, the body part, it was the nurture part, how I was raised, what my parents taught me, the socioeconomic class that they were in when they had kids, the community I grew up in, the religion I grew up with, what was going on in the country when I was little. That was a huge conditioning factor for me, growing up during the Vietnam War, the race riots, the women's lib, that had an enormous impact. And when you really look, it's like basically what I consider this person who can think for themselves is basically that consciousness is just an amalgamation of a lot of other people's ideas and information that I've learned, that I've put together in, my own unique little puzzle thing. But I can't say that I ever had a unique idea that nobody else on this planet ever had. Yeah. I'm not I didn't come into this life with the personality I have now. And anyway, I don't have a solid personality. Yeah. I mean, we sentient beings, we talk about, so-and-so's personality as if, oh, I know that. They're always going to act like this, and then they're always going to act like this, and always say like this. I know them very well. Yeah. That's not really fair because people change. Yeah. And also, this personality that we think is so solid is basically a bunch of contradictory mental states. Okay? What do I have in me? Well, yeah, there's a little bit of compassion. There's also the mental factors of anger and spite and hatred and grudge holding. Yeah. Yes, there's attachment, there's greed. There's also jealousy. There's also arrogance. Yeah. Yes, there's a little bit of ignorance. Yeah. But there's also laziness. Yeah, lack of mindfulness, lack of integrity, lack of consideration for others. I'm an amalgamation of a bunch of contradictory things. Yeah, are you? Yeah? Let's be honest. We are not, we feel like, oh, I'm a person who makes sense. Just live with yourself for a while. You know, we don't make very much sense. Yeah. And we think, yes, there's an I, you know, my real good one is, you know, because I have lousy concentration and meditation. But I say to myself, well, that's because I haven't really tried, you know, because, you know, there's 9 stages and there's, you know, different 5 hindrances and also, you know, all this 5 faults and 8 antidotes or 5 antidotes, depends which system, you know. If you like numbers and lists, Buddhism is definitely for you. But anyway, you know, so I say, oh yeah, why do I have lousy concentration? Well, it's basically because I haven't tried. But if I tried, I could sit down there, put my concentration on something, and it would stay there. It just requires my effort, and it's just because I haven't made that effort. I've been a little lazy, but I'm sure if I sat down, first meditation session, boing. Do you have, anybody else have that thought in their mind? Yeah. Yeah. You know, it's not so bad I can't concentrate. If I really tried, I could. Yeah. Same with compassion. Yeah, oh, I love compassion. I want to be compassionate. Compassion makes my heart soar. Yeah. And I should, you know, really do the meditation of exchanging self with others. But, you know, I don't know, I'm just very busy. I'm running around helping people. Yes, I am a people pleaser. I'm helping these people, I'm helping that people. I'm helping the whole world. You see how compassionate I am. But don't get in my way while I'm doing it. And don't ask too much and don't take advantage of me. And be nice to me when I'm kind to you. Yeah. And be sure and say thank you. And if you want to make an offering, put it here. You know, it's like, oh yes, I'm almost at full compassion. Look at how kind I am to everybody. You know, But there's this feeling like I'm an independent entity, and if I just willed it, yeah, I just have to will it, and then I would be 100% compassionate, you know, and go out there and find a tiger to eat my body, you know, to prove it. Yeah. Well, we have cougars here, you know, that's a good substitute, you know, except they don't usually eat adult human beings. But anyway, okay. So when we talk about dependence, you know, it's everything about our lives. You know, everybody is very concerned about the economy now. Yeah, you hear the economy, the economy, the economy. When you think, and we look at the economy, you know, here's the structure of the economy, and there's stocks and bonds and mutual funds and all these terms that I don't understand. You know, yeah, I got to go ask somebody what it means. But who invented all of those? Yeah. Who invented subprime loans that got us into the previous recession? You know, where did the whole economic system come from? Yeah, we look at it as if it's some concrete entity, unchangeable, that has existed since beginningless time. But our whole economic system is something we human beings created. It's a created phenomenon. It's not concrete. It's malleable. It was developed over time. And yet, we've made it concrete such that now we suffer within it. Yeah? Because my stocks are going down, or my bonds are, something else is happening, or the mutual funds, they're buying and selling things with funny names. Yeah. But it's all something we human beings devised, and then we suffer under it. Yeah. Our legal system, yeah, dependent on sentient beings creating it. Yeah, we follow a legal system that originated in Britain. If you go to a Native American tribe, their legal system is very different. If somebody kills somebody, they don't put them on trial and then sentence them to death. They do some kind of reconciliation. Somebody has to pay somebody, something as a punishment for killing a relative, but then everybody tries to reconcile. Our legal system, you throw somebody in the can and toss away the key. So there's so many different legal systems dependent on human mind that creates it. But how we create systems and then we suffer under them. Yeah, when we can't navigate them the way we can. Yeah, sports. Yeah, who created the rules for football and basketball and all these things? Yeah, and some people just don't like the rules. And you fight over the rules. Was that a foul or was that okay? Yeah, and your whole life depends on that, because what is it? It's the 11th inning and you're tied, 25-25 and the bases are loaded and, there's already 2 strikes and you hit a ball and it's going out to the left field. And then what happened a week ago? Some person in the bleachers reached out and tried to grab the ball from the center fielder who was trying to catch it, who caught it. Yeah. Was that legal? Was that not legal? Your whole life, whether you win the World Series, and get to go to the White House, that depends on where that ball went. Yeah. Who has that ball? And that ball is now, before somebody hit it, it was worth like maybe, I don't know how much baseballs cost, $2. But after it was hit out and it was like gonna be a home run if nobody caught it, and then somebody caught it, that ball just went up in price. Yeah. Now instead of $2, it's $2 million. Yeah. This is all coming from the human mind. So one of the things, when we meditate on emptiness, is we're trying to deconstruct the solidity with which we regard cause and effect, and dismantle this idea that we have that happiness and suffering come from outside and my mind has no role in it. But our mind does have a role. What I label fun, the activities I give the label fun to are totally different than the ones I give the labels boring to. But my fun is real fun, even if you think it's boring. And the things you think are interesting are like, quite boring. It comes from our mind, this whole projection of inherent existence, and within that, the projection, the projections that think impermanent things are permanent, that things that are in the nature of dukkha or suffering are in the nature of happiness. The minds that think that what is foul is pure. It's we have to do a lot of mental cleaning, that is dependent on our mind and the very strange, perverted ways that we think of things. Who was it? Tim Walsh, when he said weird. He wasn't talking about me, but actually the way I think is sometimes weird, if I'm honest. Are you weird? When you look at what you think, it doesn't make any sense at all, even though you're convinced that you know reality. Okay, so Vinaya is important. Okay, realizing emptiness is important. Vinaya helps to realize emptiness. Okay, then the last question was, how do you practice method and wisdom together? So how do you put together the dependency that we see when we contemplate the kindness of others, the dependency that, how that leads us to have love, to compassion, bodhicitta, and so on. How do we put that together with the wisdom realizing emptiness, where we're told that in meditative equipoise, the only thing that appears to you is emptiness, that you don't even have the appearance, not even the appearance of anything else. So how do you put together all this dependent arising with when you realize what dependent arising proves, which is emptiness? When you realize that, there's nothing, just emptiness. Is nothing the same as emptiness? Oh, you all know the answer? You're going, no. You're so good. What does it mean? We all know that emptiness isn't nothingness. Why not? Why? Why not? Do you know what's the big analogy for realizing emptiness? Space. The lack of tangibility, obstruction. So why isn't emptiness nothingness? Oh, you're all so quiet now. Yes. So this is important, because the meditation on emptiness, is not negating the existence of conventional phenomena. It's not negating existence at all. It is negating inherent existence, which never has existed. Okay, so it's not even, the object of negation in the meditation isn't even something that exists, and yet we have to negate it. Why do we have to negate it if it's not existent? Because we think it is existent. So what we're also negating, the object of negation of the path is our ignorance grasping that inherent existence. Okay, the object of negation of meditation is emptiness, the lack of inherent existence. The object of meditation of the path, what we're trying to overcome by practicing the path, is that self-grasping ignorance. Okay, so we're not negating all of existence. And furthermore, the Arya's wisdom, realizing emptiness, does not negate the existence of conventionally existent phenomena, even though those phenomena don't appear to that direct perceiver of emptiness. Okay, because until you become a Buddha, you cannot realize the two truths simultaneously with one consciousness. So the fact that you can see the emptiness of the computer, it negates the inherent existence of the computer, but it does not negate the conventional existence of the computer, which, when you come out of your meditative equipoise, appears to the mind. But it appears differently when you come out of meditative equipoise, because you still have the effect of the realization of emptiness affecting your senses and your gross mental consciousness when you come out. Yeah. So this gets into, because the question was, how do you practice method and wisdom together, compassion and wisdom together? Some of you may be familiar with the homage in Chandrakirti's text, the supplement to Nagarjuna's fundamental treatise on wisdom. So when Chandrakirti, unlike other people who praised, the Buddha or praised wisdom, he praised great compassion in his homage, to his incredibly famous text, the supplement. And he delineated three kinds of compassion. The first kind is the compassion that sees suffering sentient beings. So the thought that in his text, the lines that he said there, is first with the thought I am, they cling to a self. Then with the thought mine, they become attached to things. Like buckets on a water wheel, they turn without control. I bow to the compassion that cares for such suffering beings. Okay, so that was the homage to the compassion for suffering beings. Already in that, why are they suffering? First, with the thought I am, they cling to a self. Then with the thought mine, they become attached to things. That's the root of the problem. Well, the grasping at inherent existence of all phenomena is the root. But within that, they really emphasize the grasping at I and mine, which are our favorite things to grasp at, aren't they? I want this, I want that, I don't like this, I don't like that. Why are you treating me like this? You should treat me like that. Me, me, me. This is mine. It's not yours. Give it to me. Everything. Me, me, me. We get to do, re, me, 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 me. We can't get any further than me. We just get to I, after me, me, me. Okay, so, that's the first kind of suffering. Jeffrey translated it, instead of a water wheel, as a bucket, like a bucket in a well. I actually like that better, Because when you look at a water wheel, it doesn't exactly fit the description in the commentary that explains it. Whereas a bucket going down in a well, yeah, it fits it. Because if you've ever, I did a retreat once where we were staying at a house in the countryside where nobody lived, and the only water we had was in the well. So every morning we had to go and do the pulley and pull up a bucket of water, okay? And you really see, when the bucket, to bring it up, it takes a lot of energy. To go down, very easy. It takes a lot of effort for sentient beings to have a good rebirth. It can create that they go down to lower rebirth very easily through the creation of negative karma. When the bucket comes up, it's knocked against and the sides of the well. When it goes down, it's knocked against. So it's not just clear up and down, it's knocked around, okay? Sentient beings, we are knocked around by our thoughts, by the results of our karma, yeah? And so there's 6 ways that sentient beings are the suffering of sentient beings as like a bucket in a well. So you meditate on that. That's the first kind of, yeah. So there you can see it's bringing wisdom and compassion together, yeah, how that works. Then the next line, this is the second kind of compassion that Chandrakirti talks about. Homage to compassion that takes phenomenal reality and takes no reference as its object, okay? So the second kind of compassion and the third kind are in the next 2 lines, which I'll read together. Beings are like reflections of the moon in rippling water, seeing them as fleeting and as devoid of inherent nature. Okay, so the compassion taking phenomenal reality, yeah, is the compassion that sees sentient beings as impermanent, yeah. And sometimes included within that is seeing them as not having a self-sufficient, substantially existent I, yeah. But here, they're seen, sentient beings are seen as fleeting. They're seen devoid of permanency, in constant changing, not existing as they are in the subsequent moment. When you think about that, the whole way we look at our lives as something predictable is totally crazy. The whole way we see things as stable, predictable, or at least they should be stable and predictable, yeah, that grasping at wanting that or seeing things as that is the cause of so much suffering. Yeah, when somebody we care about dies, our mind freaks out. How could they die? We think because we just saw them that they're impervious to death. We don't see them as changing moment by moment by moment. We don't even see the gross change of somebody could be fine today and in 20 minutes be in a car crash. Yeah, or in 20 minutes have a heart attack, whatever it is. So this is another way that makes us suffer tremendously in samsara, because it's the exact opposite of how things function on a conventional level, which are things change moment to moment. And our mind does not like that. It rejects the reality of that. Okay, so it causes a lot of misery in our lives. It also lies behind why we think we're never going to die, so why we think we have a lot of time to practice the Dharma. Yeah, I feel like I'm still 21. Yeah, well, maybe I've aged. I'm like maybe 25 by now, but I have my whole life in front of me. Yeah, don't you feel like you have your whole life in front of you? No matter how old you are, somewhere in the mind, there's that feeling. And occasionally you look in the mirror and you go, oh, maybe I don't. But I really do. It's not going to happen today. Yeah. And so that kind of thought keeps us from really taking the Buddhist teaching seriously and putting energy into practice. Okay, so when you meditate on that one, yeah, is you meditate on impermanence, yeah, not only gross impermanence, but subtle impermanence. And then when you have a realization, or even if you don't have a realization of impermanence, whatever feeling you have for impermanence, yeah, then with that, when that mind is still, the feeling of that mind is still prominent, then you change your focus to sentient beings and see sentient beings as impermanent. This gives you a whole different take on sentient beings. Yeah, it's like, oh, no wonder they're unstable and unpredictable. And oh, gee, I'm unstable and unpredictable too. Yeah, everything's changing all the time. Yeah, so how you see the sentient beings changes, and also the second part of it is you realize how much sentient beings suffer because they grasp at permanence. Yeah, and they don't understand impermanence. Okay, so the trick with this is that mind that has compassion for sentient beings, seeing them as impermanent, that mind is a mind of compassion. That mind does not realize impermanence. Okay, but because you've meditated on impermanence before and you still have the hangover from doing that, yeah, not a hangover that, 2 days later, but 1 minute later, you shift your mind to meditate on sentient beings and then see them as impermanent, okay? The third kind of compassion, yeah, the compassion that sees sentient beings as empty of inherent existence, yeah, that's also in these last 2 lines, which I'll read again. Beings are like reflections of the moon in rippling water, okay? Seeing them as fleeting and as devoid of inherent nature. So rippling water, seeing them as fleeting, that's talking about changing the concept of permanence, by seeing things as impermanent. But devoid of inherent nature, seeing them like reflections. Yeah, devoid of inherent nature is what is seen when you have direct realization of emptiness. Yeah, and when you have a correct inferential understanding of emptiness too. And when you come out of the meditation on emptiness, then things appear like illusions, like reflections. Okay, so that's how it fits in with that verse. So here, you meditate on emptiness, probably emptiness of the person, yourself, somebody else you're attached to, whatever, yeah. And then when you have a clear understanding of emptiness with the, Jeffrey used to call it the hangover feeling of that meditation, then you focus on sentient beings, and it's like, oh, sentient beings are empty of inherent existence. Yeah, so that changes how we see them. Instead of seeing them as solid, we now see them as empty and existing like illusions. But also, we see how much sentient beings suffer because they don't realize emptiness, how much they suffer because they grasp at inherent existence. Yeah, and so that compassion, where you see sentient beings as suffering because they grasp at inherent existence, that's really putting compassion and wisdom together. Yeah, because those sentient beings are empty. Yeah, there's nothing there to grasp at. I can't grasp them as inherently existent, but but they're grasping themselves as inherently existent, and they suffer, so we have compassion for them. Yeah. So this is, I think, in the election season that we are now in, compassion is what we really need. And to see all the figures in this crazy thing that's going on around us as impermanent, grasping impermanence, empty of inherent existence. There's no inherently existent people, but Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter, grasping at inherent existence and suffering because of it. Yeah, and the whole political system that we human beings invented, and then that we find very uncomfortable. Yeah, we don't like the Electoral College so much anymore. It should be direct vote for, but we created this system and said you can only amend it by doing X, Y, Z, and we can't get everybody to agree to X, Y, Z, so we still have, sometimes these laws that don't apply it anymore. Okay, but we human beings created the whole thing. It's not cast in concrete. Yeah. So anyway, Chandrakirtis, these three kinds of compassion are very important for putting compassion and emptiness together. Okay.
Thank you so much, Venerable. So much practical advice packed in there. And one thing, all philosophy aside, that I thought was so profound is you think about a Buddha, think about the qualities of a Buddha, and then think about, could being a jerk make a being like that? I think it's just such practical instruction. We talk about all these high teachings and high practices and say, I'm way beyond the results being dependent on their causes. And then we think that somehow we could create this being with perfect love, compassion, skillful means, power, perfect wisdom that doesn't harm anyone and only wants to help beings by having unconcordant causes. And that somehow can make sense when Buddha just didn't do things that didn't make sense unless, when we really look at it. So I think that was just such a great piece of practical advice. All philosophy aside, you're thinking about this being you want to become. How could you become that kind of being if you didn't collect the causes to make that? And that is just such profound, basic 101 information that I think is so crucial. With the trend also that I'm also concerned about in the US, the non-dual trend, nothing matters. The ripening paths don't matter. They're just liberating paths. And it's just a clear misunderstanding of what the Buddha came to teach and a lack of systematic studies. And when I'm acting badly physically and verbally, it's a sign that my mind's out of control. And if my mind's out of control, it's not calm enough to actually get to a place where I could directly see emptiness. So if we want to fancy talk emptiness and fancy talk generation and completion stage, we have to know that once I become a vessel that's worthy by practicing the path shared, as Tsongkhapa says, then I can practice Tantrayana. And it's
Yeah.
just, it's something that's concerning. And I really appreciate you bringing that up during this talk. We have a ton of questions, and I'd like to get started with that. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for discussing these important things. There was so much in there. And thanks also for the oral instruction on illuminating the intent. That was so fantastic on Tsongkhapa's commentary on Chandrakirti's Madhyamika Avatara, that section on the 3 types of compassion. Thank you so much for speaking about how you would, being kind of hungover from impermanence, see these suffering sentient beings moving so quickly, just like you. It's just impactful. Okay, enough out of me. Anyone in the crowd that would like to go first, or would you like me to entertain these questions?
Why don't you start with your
Okay.
questions?
How do you respond? Oh boy. How do you respond to those who believe that ethics are as relative as anything else? In other words, my truth versus your truth.
How do I respond? It would depend on the person. Yeah, because some people are very invested with that. They don't want to hear anything else. They can't really take in something that doesn't agree with their ideas. So with those people, I would just say, good luck. No, not good luck, but I would, talk about something else with them because, but if it's somebody who you could see has some questioning in their mind, yeah, then I could, then I might talk more about, how I see things, without making it sound like they're seeing things all wrong and they should be just like me because I know everything. That doesn't come across very well.
Thank you. To what extent are monastics allowed to be involved in politics, or is it more a question of the way in which one engages?
It's more how we engage, yeah. Legally, if you are clergy giving, in a congregation, your organization is a 501c3, a nonprofit, tax-deductible organization, you cannot tell people how to vote. Now, I know that some pastors and so on direct their congregations how to vote, but technically you can lose your 501c3 if you do that. So that's from the legal perspective, yeah. From the other perspective, I talk about things that have to do with politics. Some people don't like that. They say, why are you talking about politics? Yeah, and I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about ethical conduct. And I'm using politics and policies that different people in the political realm speak of as illustrations of, how does this fit with ethical conduct? I talk about how people speak, how politicians speak as, examples of virtuous speech or non-virtuous speech. And the reason I use these things as examples is because everybody knows it, yeah? Whereas if you start talking about, what could we talk about? How lizards shed their skin as, talking about, yeah, you look puzzled, that's the point. But, but it's, that's cause and effect. We're talking about dependence on cause and effect. Well, not everybody's seen a lizard shed their skin or know how it works or whatever. Politics, everybody can, they just heard how somebody spoke. And if you point out that way of speaking, is a non-virtuous, creates non-virtuous karma and is harmful here and now, then people get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think also with the politics, it's very easy to use the mirror of the Dharma to see if we want to talk about compassion, great compassion that serves to generate altruism and then bodhicitta. We're all little bodhisattvas. But then when we look at the political situation, the precept of equanimity, non-biased, I'm equally willing to benefit all of you. See if that's what comes up on your television. I'm equally willing to benefit all of you. And that's well before love or compassion. Anyway.
Right. And the candidate who you disagree with is a sentient being's just trying to be happy and not suffer, you know? And so all the obnoxious, rude things they're saying, that's not who they are. You know, there's a sentient being there with the Buddha nature. And we've got to see that and not just label people, you know, this guy's an idiot, you know, throw him out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is there a level of Dharma practice and realization in which no one longer needs to observe proper ethical conduct? Maybe in the context of them having realized the nature of their mind and therefore having gone beyond the ethical, beyond, there's quotation marks, ethical conduct.
Yeah.
It does.
Yeah. This is the philosophy of the teachers who have scandals, you know, or the students that support those teachers. They've gone beyond ethical conduct. Yeah. Well, okay, so that's the question I asked at the beginning. Do you know a Buddha, that kills and steals and criticizes people and ignores them and trashes them? You know, they're beyond ethical conduct. They don't follow rules. They just do whatever's spontaneous in their mind. My generation is the generation of spontaneity. If it feels good, do it. Yeah. Just check that out and see if it works. Yeah. They say, you know, when His Holiness is asked that question, he points out that a Buddha's ethical conduct is the purest. Yeah. Yes, a Buddha keeps ethical conduct. Does a Buddha have to keep remembering all of his precepts? No, because he's become the meaning of the precepts. But that doesn't mean he's beyond ethical conduct. You know, Buddhas keep supreme ethical conduct.
The Buddha manifested.
Let me make one more remark.
Sure.
Some people in America, monasticism, it's so old-fashioned, it's so patriarchal. Why are you following a patriarchal system? It's so hierarchical. You know, you people are denying your sexuality, you're suppressing everything. You know, family life is a great opportunity to be compassionate. You know, we hear this a lot, okay? People who say that have forgotten that our teacher, the Buddha, was a monk. Yeah, the Buddha could have shown another manifestation. Yeah, he showed the manifestation of a monk, you know, who's training to restrain the senses, who's training in compassion for everybody equally. He showed that aspect and started the monastic tradition for a reason. I don't think we can throw that out. Yeah. Okay.
I concur.
Yeah, we have our hair clippers ready for you, Jeff.
We already went down that road once. It didn't work out so well.
Yeah. Well, if it first doesn't succeed, try again.
The Buddha manifested in this world. I'm already there. The Buddha manifested in this world as a monk. Tsongkhapa was a monk, making great effort to revitalize the monastic training in Tibet, choosing to remain a monastic until the end of his life, and living a celibate life, abiding in precepts, a natural expression of gaining real is I don't know the hold on, here we go. What's the question? It's more of a statement.
Uh,
Is this are the precepts a natural expression of gaining realizations along the path? I'm not sure if I have a question in that one.
uh,
I'm sorry. Okay.
yeah.
I think that that the Americans in particular have even today a strain of Puritanism, puritanical values, maybe that can lead up in how we understand and practice ethics. When karma vows and precepts are interpreted through this lens of Puritanism, I think some can arrive at unhelpful and even neurotic relationship to ethical behavior. One can become preoccupied with perceived ethical shortcomings. And oh, I accidentally took the bank pen, and if I don't drive the 5 miles back, then I'm guaranteeing myself an eon of bad karma. So how do those of us with these kind of harsh tendencies towards ourselves, learn to hold the ethical precepts without activating those kinds of harsh, neurotic tendencies within us to kind of beat ourselves up and be
Okay.
over self-critical?
Okay. I think one of the greatest difficulties people in the West have with practicing the Dharma is this tendency to be hyper self-critical and really quite derogatory towards ourselves. So that's something that we really have to work on, yeah, without going to the other extreme of thinking, well, I'm the best one in the world, obviously. Okay, so abandoning those two extremes. How do we work with that kind of mind? If you look, I think a lot of it comes from the Judeo-Christian culture. Yeah, God said this. Yeah, God invented the ethical system. Yeah, in Buddhism, the Buddha did not invent the ethical system. The Buddha did not say, oh, this is virtuous, this is non-virtuous because of his mood at the moment, okay? But in, a Judeo-Christian system, somebody outside made the system. We don't get always reasons why the system was made that way. And we don't always see people who are in leadership positions practicing that. That's not to say everybody who's in a position of leadership in Buddhism keeps perfect ethical conduct. That's not the case. Yeah, but this thing of thinking their thing is right, it's wrong, and there's no shades of gray. Yeah, and so if a precept says you've got to eat by a certain time, you eat by that time because 1 minute late is a transgression. That is terrible, and you've got to, confess that. So the way, I think, put it this way, people keep ethics in different ways. And for some people, the very literal way of keeping it and the very clear lines of what is right, what is wrong, that works for them. Their minds don't like gray. Their minds don't like an answer that says it depends. They want a very clear, it's this way or it's that way. Whereas in Buddhist ethics, yeah, a lot depends not on the action we did, but on our intent, the intention behind which we did the action, our motivation. It depends, if we identify the object that we're acting on correctly, or if we mistake it. It depends on our intention. It depends what kind of virtuous or non-virtuous other mental factors are coming along with the mental factor of intention. It depends on how the action is done. It depends on if you rejoice at the end of it or if you regret afterwards. So, you know, it isn't just kind of very black and white. There's many, many shades in there. Yeah. And I think the more we can train our mind to have a broad perspective, yeah, that looks at many, many different factors, then that really, it opens our mind a great deal, you know? And then you can see ethical conduct as something to train in. It, you know, these are not vows that are right and wrong. They're things to train in. They're precepts that you train your body, speech, and mind in, you know, and it causes you, that training causes you to look at your motivation. It makes you be very, very honest with yourself about why you say and do what you say and do. Yeah. So that ability to, and like I said, think of different factors, it changes how we look at the precepts. Yeah.
So last question from here. I don't know if there's other questions there. We've been kind of hogging the question space here online, but
That's okay.
so you mentioned that you should practice more than one type of meditation. As a Vipassana meditator, I would like to know other types of meditation you'd like to suggest, or is it just a personal choice? I find Zazen or the just sit meditation to be the most inviting, as it seems the most simple and seems to be a fastest way to enlightenment, or at the very least, a much simpler life.
Well, like I said, His Holiness said our mind was a very complicated matter. Yeah, because we have many different facets, many different characteristics, and we need to develop many different qualities to become a Buddha. It's not just learning to sit with our legs crossed and our mouth closed and our eyes lowered. Yeah, it's not just that. I mean, you look at the example of the Buddha, he was going all around teaching people, negotiating when different groups were in conflict, talking to people who have totally different philosophical and religious beliefs. You know, he was out there engaging with everybody. He didn't say, you know, oh, well, I'm a Buddha and you're a poor slob. He didn't sit in meditation all day. You know, he meditated and he engaged with sentient beings and taught sentient beings. So I think that's important. So in terms of what other meditations I would recommend, in Theravada Buddhism, you have the meditation on the four immeasurables, you know, love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. I would recommend meditating on those, you know, and really spending some time. When you do that, it makes us face all of our, I like this person and I don't like that person tends. Yeah. You know, I want to be around these people who agree with me and like me. I don't want to be around those people. These people, you know, my friends and relatives, I want to have happiness and its causes. Those people are total idiots and jerks, and look at the signs on their lawns. They're voting for that person. You know, if you do these meditations, you have to deal with your mind that thinks like that. Yeah, because do you think that a Buddha looks at people with different political opinions and just says, get that guy out of here, they're a total lunatic? You know, no. You know, Buddha says, come, sit down, we'll have some tea. Tell me why you think the way you think. Yeah. Does thinking in that way, how does it affect you? Does it make you happy? Does it improve your relationships? Buddha would talk to these people. Okay? So I think we can learn a lot from that. Oh, also, so those meditations, love, compassion, joy, equanimity, very important. Yeah, what else? Meditations on karma. If you look at the Zen teachings, and not just Japanese Zen, but really trace it back to Chinese Chan, yeah. If you go to Taiwan and the people who practice Chan Buddhism, it's very strong in the monastic tradition. They meditate a lot on bodhicitta. They have the four great precepts, four great vows. There's a lot in there about love and compassion, tolerance, Buddhaghosa, the great Theravada commentator, if you look in his text, The Path of Purification, yeah, he has a whole chapter about how to deal with anger. And what he talks about is so similar to Shanti Deva's discussion in chapter 6 of Bodhicharya Avatara. So there's so much more in all of our Buddhist traditions that we have to learn and plummet. And it expands our mind, expands our heart. We go from just, my little periscope focused on me, my, I, and mine, what is good for my meditation, how I can be concentrated, I want to be peaceful, I want to realize emptiness. This person's making noise and disturbing my meditation. It makes us go beyond that to really see, hey, there's a lot going on in this universe. It's not just about me and my happiness and my suffering. So I think these meditations are in all the Buddhist traditions. Look for them.
Thank you so much, Venerable Chodron. This has been an amazing, amazing talk. And I think that we all have something to look at within our own lives. We have a mirror to look at and say, are we creating more samsara, a more interesting, fancy samsara where we have some more arms maybe? And is it just another version of samsara? Or are we creating the causes to get out of samsara? Are we creating the causes to get rid of the afflictive obstructions and the obstructions to omniscience? Or are we just creating something more interesting so that we are then born again in cyclic existence and have suffering and lack of the best happiness we could have? So thank you so much. This is something that people could listen to over and over and over again and take so much from. And that's the point of this series, and that was the point of all of, again, Jeffrey Hopkins' work, was to try to help us improve our minds and move closer to having a discerning mind that's apprehension tallies with reality. And it's not just about emptiness, that we're not tallying with reality. And that's something that you pointed out. I think that things that are, really sad are happy. I think that things that are impermanent are permanent. And that's way before emptiness. And thank you so much for giving us something to meditate on and change our minds further with. So next week, we have Professor George Dreyfus, Geshe Larampa, talking about the Prasangika Svatantrika debate. And it should be very, very interesting. There's very subtle lines in there that are often kind of confused and mixed up. And I really look forward to hearing that, as I know all of you are.
Yeah.
Thanks to Sravasti Abbey so much, Venerable Chodron so much. And just, through Gen Jeffrey's process, I just want to say this. I know we've gone on for a while, but through Gen Jeffrey's process, he was very sick I called Sravasti Abbey or emailed and said, hey, can we do Medicine Buddha prayers? There wasn't a hesitance. Of course, yes. And then again, Jeffrey passed. Hey, can we do the prayers for 49 days? Of course. Venerable Chodron, no hesitance. Then the series came up and Venerable Chodron said, of course, no hesitance. So I just want to thank you so much for being open and doing so much also for Gen Jeffrey to help support his legacy. And then also when he was with us to support him in his health process through all those Medicine Buddha prayers and so forth. And then also the King of Prayers that we recited. So thank you to all of you and everybody behind the scenes helping make all this happen. Don't forget, if you want to make a donation to Uma Institute for Tibetan Studies, there's a link in the chat box, but also you can later go to the Sravasti Abbey website and just put in there Hopkins Legacy Series, and the donations will get there, and we'll make sure that the website and all of the wonderful things that are there stay there, and then more can be created. And some of, again, Jeffrey's very complicated text he was working on at the end, the Prasangika section of Leishi Nimpo, can be finished with all of the commentaries on it. 20 commentaries that he used to do the series of Leishi Nimpo, because you need 20. You need 20. So now let's dedicate the immense amount of merit we've created from listening to this pure teaching, and the prayers will be led by Sravasti Abbey. And thank you again so much, everybody, for being here with us.
Due to this merit, may we soon attain the awakened state of Guru Buddha, that we may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.